Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are sitting in, I'm going to call it the bourbon bunker because we are downstairs and there's bourbon everywhere and we are at Doc Crow's.
I like that.
Well, now there's bourbon everywhere.
And we are hanging out with our friend John Shumake and Brad Lawton. So gentlemen, welcome to Bourbon Barrel Talk. How are you doing? And if you don't mind, let's tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Brad, do you want to start or shall I?
Go for it.
Okay. So I have one of the best jobs in America. I am the whiskey maven and one of the executive bourbon stewards at Doc Crow's on historic Whiskey Row in Louisville, Kentucky. So much of my job involves labeling bottles, training staff, building the flight program. Tasting. Lots and lots of tastings.
You didn't lead with tasting?
You
led with training the staff?
Listen, he wanted to make it sound less glamorous. Right. He had to start with all the hard shit first.
When I think about what I do every day, and I focus more on the staff part than on the tasting part, even though I love doing the tasting. So when our guests come in and they want tastings, we do those for small, large groups, individuals, blah, blah, blah. But it's exciting. It is exciting.
All right, Brad.
So I'm the GM down here at Doc Crow's on Whiskey Row. And unlike John, I have a little more task on my plate and not quite as enjoyable as what he made it fabulously sound like. But it's a great job. Love the things we do. I love the people we work with. I love the product we sell. And I love the entity that is Doc Crow's, Doc's Bourbon Room. Each day is just as trying as the next. But the fun part of that is if it wasn't complicated and complex, you'd get bored and give up. So it's all a beautiful story.
So that's a great intro, and I want to transition into what you guys sell. So you sell your brand. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I can speak to part of that. We create an extraordinary guest experience. So we're not just on Whiskey Row. We're actually in the heart of Whiskey Row. So on the very block where...
Some people might say you are Whiskey Row.
Well, no, we can't say that we are Whiskey Row.
Listen,
you can't, but we can.
I think you can, and the reason I think you can is because you literally have all of the whiskey. You're not just Old Forester. You're not just Michter's. You're not just Angel's Envy. You're not just Peerless. You are literally anything that anybody could possibly want. They can probably find it here.
Under one roof.
In some aspects, yes, we are. However, we're also an extension of history, collection. We're educators. We're a museum. I mean, we have so many roles. So.
A tasting museum. A live interactive museum.
Yes.
The museums that I like to go visit.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't climb on the ladder. That's the only thing we ask.
No climbing on the ladder.
Has someone done that yet?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yes.
You know they have.
You got to take a selfie.
Yes.
But first, let me take a selfie.
Yes.
So, what happens?
So,
Not that we digress, but...
So, probably... a tall black guy will walk up to that person and say, "We're so happy to have you here at Doc Crow's today. We ask that you not step on the ladders or handle the bottles unless someone from our staff has handed it to you."
So you are super nice the first time.
Yes, the first time. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have to have a sense of humor, but obviously you don't want people to
Unless
hurt
he's
themselves.
talking to you.
Very well put.
If he's talking to me, he's like, "Dude, get off."
I mean, there are occasions where, well, no, I won't say that. But there are occasions where it's more aggressive. But
no, I kind of want to hear what you were not going to say.
Well, that's after this podcast.
Fair.
But we try to create extraordinary guest experiences.
Yeah.
That's really what we do. And I think we do it pretty well.
Yeah, you have a beautiful facility. I love your locker program as well. That's very unique with regards to having an exclusive bourbon bar.
We try not to promote that because we have a waiting list for lockers now.
Gotcha. So scratch that, but notice that they have lockers that are very highly sought after.
Right. Absolutely.
That I'm not on any of them, but
we always open our arms and welcome you when you're here.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Right? Is it not true?
It's very
Oh,
true.
We give
100%.
bourbon hugs. Bourbon hugs are amazing.
Bourbon hugs are great. And I don't want to bring my own bourbon anyways.
In small and in large doses.
Indeed.
No, just in large doses.
Just in
we
large
have
doses.
long days.
I mean, I'll take any bourbon hug. It can be a small bourbon hug or a big bourbon hug.
Yeah, we know you're not picky.
Certainly.
I'm not picky. at
We
all.
know.
So,
and then on the backside of that, speaking beyond the experience and the education piece and the foundry that is teaching the staff and elevating the experience and the overall, we also, try to make a really good cocktail menu. We always have the best in mind for the experience and the guest that's coming in. We're fully culpable from at least 99% of that. We've got a very young staff, but they are dedicated to the cause and ready for any challenge that you would throw in front of them, I think.
That's awesome. That's great to be able to train your staff that way. And I appreciate the cocktail list because, in my opinion, going out here downtown, having a very exclusive cocktail bar is something that, although we're the bourbon capital of the world, I feel like we lack in having very good cocktail experiences. And although whiskey was not made to be drank at barrel proof and as strong as it can be over and over and over again, my bar will tell you otherwise. But sometimes you have to have a nice, elegant cocktail bar. Something to change it up is always nice. So, and you guys do a fantastic job, in my opinion. So, tell me a little bit about your cocktail list, and then what's new to come with what you're about to tell us.
I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the cocktail list because I focus on the individual pours of the whiskey.
Yeah, we like him more than you, but
So our cocktails are all inspired by the bartenders themselves. So we put their initials on the menu. We let them build that. Myself, John, and Ileana, who's one of our managers on the floor, create the profile to those in the bartender's light and kind of replace bourbon where necessary for cost and all that good stuff. But overall, we modify to the best of our ability to deliver that super good flavor and profile that is the cocktails we serve. And then we always try to round that off with a few bourbons, of course, the old fashioned, but also a margarita and a rum and a vodka. So, we are one of the largest bourbon bars in the nation. However, we also want to appeal to everyone. So it's very important that we deliver that message that, yes, we are a bourbon bar, but if you do want tequila, we've got some really good tequila products. If you do want vodka, we've got some, and why would you. So anyway, we try to appeal to everybody.
That's awesome.
But
now, if you ever wanted to add Matt's Ultimate Manhattan or Scott's Basic Cocktail, which is simply just a pour of whiskey. It's not really a cocktail. It's just a pour of whiskey. Right. We're open. We're donate our names to that.
So I've got a perfect Manhattan cocktail, which is a little bit of bourbon, a little bit of scotch, and a little bit of vermouth, and it is phenomenal. But it's tough.
Scotch to your Manhattan.
The perfect Pearl Manhattan. If you ever go to Chicago, and I won't mention the name of the place, but it is
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Perfect
and
Pearl Manhattan.
I haven't ordered it because I'm skeptical about mixing scotch and bourbon together in a cocktail.
It's the oak and the smoke with the delivery of what the peaty scotch is.
If I like my bourbon, I don't want to lick a calf's foot while I'm drinking barrel proof whiskey. However,
I would concur with that.
Thank you. One can counteract the other.
And it's unpatriotic. Let's add that.
Thank you.
Hey.
He's not wrong.
No.
But I also think a Manhattan is, right? Do you have your maraschino cherries? Do you have your right bitters? Like what are you doing?
Luxardo cherries.
Really?
Maraschino over Luxardo any day of the week, my friend.
Really?
Yep. And this is where the table becomes divided.
And this is where the table becomes divided from both of you because I would go to a supermarket and dip my own.
Actually, the moonshine cherries are actually fantastic.
So when you make your own cherries, that's a totally different.
Yeah, hey, that's
a little bit of
cheating.
brandy, a little bit of whiskey. I mean, doing some things with it.
Have you had the moonshine ones yet?
Yeah, they're good.
I like those in Manhattan.
They're bright and sparkly. But I would say on the maraschino, if you looked up how they made those maraschino cherries, you may not have that.
Nope, don't want to do that. That's like half the things I eat and drink. I don't want to see how it's made.
Gummy bears, they're amazing. Never ask how glued that stuff is.
Yeah, it's like the Flintstone Vita gummies that I took when I was 5 are still fighting things away.
Exactly, man.
30 years later.
Samurai.
So before we dive into to what you guys got going on that's new, I want to dive back into. You were cool enough to bring us in and let us talk to Lucky 7 while they were doing a special tasting for you guys and doing some other things. And John had mentioned the fact that you all have roughly 1,100 bottles of bourbon here in the store or restaurant / bar. And wanted to kind of go over that part of your flight or your program. So what does that look like? And then I know from the last time I was sitting here with John, and to piggyback that question, you said that you always kind of save the last pour just to keep I guess, preservation of the actual collection.
So to maintain the integrity
Yep.
of the collection, so in fact that we do have 2,500 plus whiskey expressions, that is a specific mash bill, and a different proof, we do say one pour. So we actually have collected those in one spot here in the restaurant, and we actually have bottles with just one pour left. So all of the things that we may not have in at that particular moment available to our guest, we actually have them.
Do you ever like intend on having like a 10 or a 15-year anniversary and just call it the one pour blowout?
Yeah,
and-
when zombies come.
So that would be like
Like
an
when
infinity
zombies
bottle.
come and you lock me in that cage. Hell yeah, I'm going to drink everything.
And we may indeed lock you in the cage, man.
That's fine.
That-
But
Please.
leave those bottles there.
Throw the key
I would
away.
be afraid with what
No
would
key.
get drank while we were locking him in the cage.
Although that would be a really cool infinity bottle project.
It would
Truth.
be. It would be.
We
I
could
believe
call
in
it
infinity.
Scott's Infinity Stomach Project.
Listen, I'm down.
I would drink it.
I'm down.
God only knows what's in there, but I'd still drink it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that you'd probably enjoy
So,
drinking.
what would you say is the most unique bourbon in the collection?
I would point to a couple.
But you had to pick one.
I can't give one.
Gotta pick one.
So we've got 20. I mean, honestly,
We can all pick one.
What's your favorite song?
Is it
Scott?
your oldest? I mean, you talk about like unique.
Is it your
right?
first
Like-
child or second child?
let me
Right?
give you
Just
a
pick
few.
one.
In all fairness, let me give you a few.
All right, give me
Okay.
3.
I will pick the fave.
Okay. I mean, you have to say something about pre-prohibition bottles.
Absolutely.
And we've got several of those. They're rye whiskey, not bourbon, but we've got 1905, 1909, 1911, old overhauled. They came to us by way of a private collector, by way of, was it Christie's or Sotheby's?
It's Christie's.
Okay. Yeah. And God, so
Oh,
good.
Sotheby's has a
So
ton of stuff
good.
too.
And
It's so
luckily for
delicious.
us, John was able to offer that to one of our guests a few weeks back, and we actually got to taste that. And man, I can't imagine it is any different than when it went into that bottle 130 years, 120 years ago, 115 years ago.
Delicious.
It was
Really.
amazing. It was phenomenal. Like
Really
the
was.
the profile was just as crisp and man, it was good. It was good.
And there's a great backstory on that as well.
Well, the old overhaul now, just to piggyback real quick
Rye.
before the pivot.
Yes.
Is that a Maryland rye? Or is it a Kentucky rye?
No, it's up north.
Yeah. So the overhalts were in the Pennsylvania
Pennsylvania.
area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the overhalts, I believe, sold out to the Fricks.
Mm-hmm.
Frick, if I remember correctly, had a partner, one of the Mellons, as in Carnegie Mellon,
Yep.
etc. And with Prohibition looming, he stockpiled in his cellar a tremendous amount of old overhaul because he was an investor and so forth and so on. But then he was appointed as the Secretary of the Treasury, I believe it was, and he was told he needed to get rid of that for appearance's sake. So these have been authenticated, and they're absolutely delicious. They're expensive. I mean, they're not for everyone. Price.
Oh, they're not cheap? Like,
Well, no.
what?
I mean,
Well,
What do you mean I can't try it?
you can.
What?
You
For
can.
for $2,000, I am happy to pour for you as I did for another gentleman and his friend.
I'm going to save my comments for that for when we're off the podcast.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's not for everybody's pocketbook. We'll put it that
It's
way.
not, but it's such an extraordinary
Experience.
snapshot
Yeah.
of history in terms of whiskey making that you can appreciate just figuring out the older trees, that
So-
time frame. No,
so,
go ahead.
So you value that as an over $20,000 bottle of whiskey.
Okay, sure.
That's insane.
Is it really?
Yes.
Think of what people spend money on.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything more patriotic, more closely tied to the American experience than whiskey, but bourbon specifically?
I don't have a problem with that price point. And the reason
No,
I
I don't
say
have a
that is
problem
because
either. I just meant
when you
like-
look at like Tornado Surviving, the H. Taylors, I mean, some of those things are ridiculously
I
priced.
agree, but like, come on,
The
guys.
sour mash is
Yeah, the sour mash.
$22,000.
Yeah.
Guys,
I mean,
first off, it's all the
absurd.
same thing. It
Right.
sits in the same warehouse in the same spot. Just one went through a traumatic experience, okay?
Let's move on to other things in our collection.
Let's do it. Move
Stitzel
on. to
Wellers.
I can buy a car
So what's our-
for
what's our oldest?
$28,000.
Stitzel Wellers. We've got some delicious Stitzel Wellers. And oddly, some of the less well-known ones, the very old, very extra old Fitzgeralds. They are so
Super
fine.
tasty,
They're
though.
so fine.
Super
so
tasty.
fine. So well balanced, so unique, so antique furniture.
So there was one year I was at Whiskey Pig out in Bardstown, and they had, I think Jack Rose brought it, or it was either Jack Rose or Delilah's. One of them brought an old bottle of some Stitzel-Weller stuff, and they also brought us a 1950 Maryland rye that we got
Okay.
to have as well.
Okay.
Super fantastic. Do not regret paying for any one of those pours. Now, Whiskey Pig is a thing of the past now, but
Right, the blind squirrel.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rest in peace, Whiskey Pig. But super tasty. But then the rye from up north was very unique and uncharacteristic to what we drink today. In today's rye, that
Certainly.
I think it is well worth trying some of that if you get the ability to find it. So
Okay.
while I shiver in the fact that I could have a car instead of a shot of whiskey,
But it's not just a shot of whiskey.
no, it's delicious.
It's,
a shot of
it's a
history.
pour of whiskey.
It's a shot of
Man.
that
history.
is a part of history, an historic whiskey
Because
row.
it is something you'll never have again.
Yeah,
And that's why I think what you guys offer is so unique to the public, because you're right. There's maybe one of 5 other places in the entire United States that you're going to find something like that. And I tell you that I've been to a lot of those before, and there's so few. You can count on one hand the places you can try that. So, yeah, it's very unique. It's very worth it.
But it's also the people who congregate here. I mean, bourbon specifically brings people together. And so at any given moment, so the Lucky
Not
Seven.
after 11 o'clock.
Well, not after 11 o'clock. But you always want to leave them wanting more, right? You always want to leave them wanting more.
Speaking of more.
Well, sure. I mean, we have to, as Whitney Houston says, how will I know? If I don't drink it, how will I know? I
That's
have to
absolutely
drink it,
100% right. All right. So you've given us a few different ones. And now, now Brad is going to tell us which one is the most unique.
Wait a minute. I didn't finish.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, my bad.
No,
My
no.
bad.
Wow,
No.
way to cut him off.
Look, I've got a few more things.
He doesn't want Brad to talk.
No,
He
no,
does
no,
not
no,
want
no,
Brad to
no,
talk.
no. I can't not acknowledge the OKIs. That is extraordinarily unique that we have such a rich collection of 10 and 12-year OKIs.
You do. I was admiring them when I walked in every time.
19 bottles. 19 bottles.
And I think we should probably taste some before you leave.
Yep, not mad about that.
Not
Gonna
mad.
hold my comment until later.
All right, and that's this episode about. No, I'm just kidding.
And on that
Now
episode,
it's time.
And then lastly, I'd have to mention the Thompson's Final Reserve, the oldest aged bourbon released to the market. 45,
was that the stuff they did the Fraser?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that 45-year-old
Yep.
stuff.
45,
yeah.
44, and 42 years in the
That is
barrel.
so oaky.
It is, but it's such a unique experience.
So I was really fortunate enough to try that.
It's the oaky leather, man.
Same
It's
here.
Oh
amazing.
my God.
Yes.
So good.
Listen, I think drinking peaty scotch is like licking somebody's shoe. No.
That.
It's having
that is a
over-oaked 45-year-old whiskey. It is cool, but you're like,
Yeah.
It is
no.
a boot.
A shoe.
It is
Das
a boot.
Boot.
It is a Nashville, Tennessee leather boot. And you're just like, man, this was just
This is
killed
true.
5 minutes ago.
So peated scotch would be that leather boot that was thrown in.
No,
the,
peated scotch is the foot, is the undercarriage
Right.
of the boot.
Mixed with a little salt water.
Yeah.
I was going to say thrown in the bottom of a salty lake for 5 years. It had mold growing on it.
Stepped in dog shit.
And the funny thing is that there's a double oak,
There is.
which
There
is
I-
which is
Yes, there is. And I
44,
found
I
that to be, I think it was 43, right?
oh, you all ask these tough questions. I got to flip through the menu before I'll know my daggone self. Final Reserve, Thompson, Glenmore Distillery.
So while he's looking at that, Brad,
I mean, you picked a sourced OKI
you tell us
as
what-
your favorite.
what-
it's the 42.
which one
that's
is it?
Double oak.
Which one's the
42
big?
year.
Which one's the big boy? The 42 is what you said.
The
42-year-old.
42 is double oak.
That's
yes.
crazy.
So, hold on. John, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
So, you talk about OKI, right?
Yes.
Now, I love OKI, right?
Yes.
I have 20 bottles of it at my house, all
Oh.
different expressions, single
Okay.
barrels,
Okay.
sherry butt, Belgium quad, the rye, right?
Okay.
I've got it all.
Excellent.
However, you neglect the other half of that lot. So, that MGP lot was divided in half,
Okay.
right? With OKI
Yes.
and our dearest friends at...
Oh, Oak Carter.
No.
No,
New Riff.
New Riff.
The Riff.
No, New Riff is
New
that.
Riff is OKI.
No.
Riff took
Well,
over the distilling.
Boone County.
Oh, Boone County.
County.
Yes.
Okay.
So right there was
Yeah.
there allegedly, right, rumors have it, I'll probably get in a lot of trouble for going into this, but it's fine.
8 barrels.
Sure, 8 barrels of
Okay.
10 to 12-year-old Indiana stuff.
Lawrenceburg
that
stuff,
lot, Indiana.
MGP.
Lawrenceburg.
Indiana.
Okay. Okay. One of the best rye whiskey.
Fantastic. But that was the
Sure. They do great work.
I was just curious why you would count OKI over the 12-year-old OKI versus the 12-year-old Boone County.
You asked me about unique.
Correct, but it was right in my opinion they're the same.
Well,
They're the same uniqueness.
They are similar in uniqueness because not only did Boone County have theirs, but OKI finished theirs, and they finished a
They
lot.
finished a
of them.
couple of them.
They finished a
Yes.
lot.
They
I
did the
mean,
Belgium quad and then the sherry butt.
right,
Yes.
That was the only two. Now Boone County did not.
right.
At all.
So
Straight
all.
from the barrel.
So we're going
Correct.
unique. So they're finished.
No,
so
I was
therefore
ju- I
they're
was
And
just
the
different.
blends.
curious.
No, you just asked
Yeah.
about unique. And
Yeah,
so that
no,
was-
I was curious what was the dividing line because that's a really common thing that people overvalue OKI for what not overvalue is the wrong
overvalue?
word.
That's strong.
Overvalue OKI versus Boone County, even though it was from the same lot. And so I was curious as to how we can get into that a little bit more because I'm the same way, right? I love OKI, but I like Boone County, even though it was the same thing. I have the same perspective that you do too, but I wanted to know where that line comes from. And we're digging way too deep into this, and I apologize.
We absolutely
And-
are.
yeah, no,
And
no.
in the rabbit hole we go.
And speaking of rabbit hole, they also are on our new flight menu.
Oh, which one?
It's the Vineyard flight. So we
Yeah.
actually have finished flights. Rabbit Hole, Derringer, Thomas S. Moore Port, Huber's, Sherry Cask, and the Barrel Dovetail Rum Port and Cabernet.
Fantastic.
finish. So that
What
is-
a good variety of finishing whiskeys.
I thought very approachable.
Thank you for getting me out of the old rabbit hole and into a new one.
Yes. It's exciting actually to launch a flight menu.
It was quite the beautiful redirect. I
So,
have to-
so
have to
is
be
this
honest.
live as of today?
Oh,
Next
gosh,
week, I
no.
thought you said, right?
No, we're giving you the premiere. You're actually having the ability to share this news first. No one else has this information. It's coming out next week before we start the Farm and Machinery Show.
Fantastic.
So this episode will drop on Sunday. So it literally will come out the day before
Yeah. it's
you all drop
beautiful.
the flight. So it'll be
awesome.
We're
pretty
excited.
neat.
We really are excited. It's humbling too.
Yeah, I think you guys did a great job putting those flights together. I think it's a really great mesh of different whiskeys from similar flavor profiles that will really blend together. So I really appreciate that menu, and it really helps people who don't know whiskey. It helps them to expand their palate and see what else is out there. I think you guys did a great job with that.
And I noticed that Scott is counting them. And yes, there are 7. It is
Yeah.
a lucky 7, just to kind of continue that theme.
Right.
And Lucky 7 is on the 7th flight, along with Blue Run, Bardstown Bourbon Company, and Peerless, our
So-
neighbors in Whiskey Row Quarter.
So I was going to ask if that had something to do with that, but also, I mean, these flights are I love the names. I mean, you come up with some really really fun, cool names to go with these, and I kind of like where you went with them.
Which is your favorite name?
Honestly, I kind
Heir
of
to the throne.
Heir to the Throne is really good, but I also kind of like the Ambassador. I mean, I see where they all fit in right there. I kind of get where you're coming from on that one.
For the record, the best is the Dirty Bird.
Oh, that's absolutely the funniest or the best name, right? But
And you know why, right?
Because the bird is the word.
Because we're next to the
Was
Yum
kidding. It
Center
was a
where the
joke?
Cardinals play, right?
Hold on. No one got that. All right. I'm done.
We're next to the
And
Yum
signing
Center
off.
where the Cardinals play, and for that reason, it's the Dirty Bird. It has nothing to do with
It's not as appealing anymore. So, just kidding. Just kidding.
it has nothing to do with the various
Go-karts.
names on
the
there.
Dirty Bird.
But go-karts.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's going to be richly popular with people.
No, absolutely, 100%.
Had no idea.
So let's walk through a couple of these flights.
Certainly.
And let's talk, why you picked those.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of dive in a little bit deeper on a couple of other things, and then we'll sign this bad boy off. So the introduction to bourbon, you've got Angel's Envy, you've got Doc's Evan Williams, which I think is a single barrel you all must have picked, and
Correct.
a Woodford Reserve Double Oak, and a Maker's 46. So I think all these are great introductory bourbons, and I think that's where you're going with this. But why did you choose these over? And I'm just going to throw something out there. Let's say let's go with, instead of a Doc Evan Williams, why didn't you go with E.H. Taylor small batch or something like that?
Well, you have to consider the ability to access things, and we won't have a tater conversation because at this particular moment, they're not on my good list for the limited distribution. So let's move beyond that, and let's talk about this as being double oaked, low rye, wheated, and finished. That was the idea with the introduction to bourbon.
Okay.
And these particular expressions have been popular. So we spend a lot of time walking around and talking to various guests at tables. And this seems to be the best kind of lower to moderate proof flight. That's a great introduction to bourbon.
It also kind of hits 4 points of the compass, too. I love it.
No, absolutely. You got a finished bourbon with the Angel's Envy. You've got the Doc's, the single barrel, which makes it kind of nice and cool. The double oak, and then the Maker's 46 gives you the wheater. Yeah, absolutely. It touches all the points for sure. So the Ambassador, which, like I said, I love the name. These are some unique pours. What was the inspiration behind that piece?
So many of our guests are looking for the complete whiskey experience, and so we wanted to offer a Scotch, a Canadian whiskey, a Japanese whiskey, and an Irish whiskey. Essentially all of the other major whiskey producing nations in the world.
Right. And the green label.
And of course, traditionally, green labels have either been rye or Irish. So this is our take on American rye whiskeys.
It's fantastic. And then the Dirty Bird, because that's obviously my favorite.
And that's easy enough to see.
Yeah, Chicken Cock, Eagle Rare, Fighting Cock,
sure,
Kentucky Owl. So they're all bird names, which you got to love that.
Well, we also call it the Naughty Feathered Flight.
The Naughty Feather.
It'd be way cooler if you did that.
The Naughty Feather.
So Legends, I also find that one a little bit different there. So Old Forester single barrel, and it's going to say it varies. Elijah Craig barrel proof, which is going to vary, which I understand that, and Four Roses small batch select. So will those Elijah Craig and those Old Foresters, will those be barrel strength or more like the 100 proofers, or what's the thought process behind that?
It's hard to say which Old Forester. Actually, so oftentimes Old Forester brings guests over after they do barrel picks. We actually happened to interact with a guest, and they offered a taste. It was so very delicious that when Brad and I were tasting it, we knew we had to include it somewhere, and so they allowed us to access a case of their pick. So it's probably going to vary. We probably will do different Old Forester single barrels. Of course, they're our neighbors. We love them. We love the product. They're here a lot, and we want to showcase them. And they actually have marked themselves historically.
Yep.
Founded in 1870, one of our neighbors on this block, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, so the vineyards are obviously always all wine finished products, and I do love a few of these on here.
Only a few?
So I'm not in no shade or anything like that. I'm not a huge Thomas More fan. Like I've tried all of them. Not a massive fan of it. So
okay, fair enough.
But the Derringer I like. I love Huber's. I love all the stuff Huber's is doing on their finishes, man. Have you tried the VDN?
I've had a number of theirs. I don't know that I've had that one.
The VDN's delicious.
Have you had the new honey?
Yes.
My God.
So the honey's good, but the VDN blows it out.
Really?
Like VDN
Really?
is it's finished in a Vino de Narange, which is an orange macerated wine.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it's thunder. I mean, it's so good. I'll have to bring you in a sample.
Yeah,
I've got a couple of
write
bottles.
that down.
And then so Barrel Dovetail, the rum port Cabernet is the one that I really don't know a whole lot about. Give me a little bit more detail on that piece.
So, when you are trying to create flights, you have to think of your end guest. And I don't want to say that this is for men or for women, but we'll say it's for wine lovers. We'll say it's for one who appreciates a softer flavor profile. We'll say it's for someone who likes something sweet. We'll say it's for someone who is newer to bourbon or seasoned enough in bourbon that they can appreciate that approach. The Dovetail, it's got so much going on with those finishes that it should almost be flavored. I mean, it's that richly textured in fruit.
Gotcha. I haven't tried it yet. Not that particular one. I've had a ton of barrel bourbons, but I've not had that actual expression.
And we can do that too.
What was the new one that I tried? Is it like Seaside or
Seagrass.
Seagrass.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. But like
It's
I said, I'm
super
not
complex. Too.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
it's super
got such a
complex.
Well, it's got a lot of finishing
funky
barrels
build
in there
yeah,
as well.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
It's wild.
So, like I said, I've not had a chance to taste all of them, obviously. So this is one that, like I said, I've not tried yet. So I'm definitely anxious to give that a whirl. So the last one is the Heir to the Throne, and that's kind of the Lucky 7 batch with Peerless, Blue Run, and then Bardstown Bourbon Company, one of my favorites, the Discovery series. So
Absolutely. They do such great work there. They've been good about assisting us with training, but their expressions are also so very transparent, and we can respect that as whiskey lovers. So we know what we're drinking. We know how old it is. We know what the mash bill is, and they're also fine people. They do a great job.
So when you're walking a client through a flight or through a tasting or things to that nature, what kind of questions do you ask them to figure out what's going to mesh best with their taste profile? Or at least try to do your best to figure that out, Robbie, right?
A lot of people will just focus on things they like, and that's important for sure. So things that you've had that you like, what are some of the best bourbons or whiskeys that you've had? But I'm also as interested to know what they don't like and why, because that can be a stumbling block. For example, I like really high proofs. A lot of people don't. No, what were you going to say, Brad?
No. That was it. Is you don't want to burn their palate out if they're used to 80 and 90 proof, and then you introduce 120 proof. Even one of our barrel picks, it's 119.2. So if you introduce that as part of that flight, you're just gonna burn their palate out immediately. So
Right.
you have to be super conscientious of what they don't like as much as what they do.
So
as John was saying.
if I was a beginner bourbon drinker, which we know I'm not, but if I was, and let's just say I said, man, I really enjoy Woodford Reserve, and I really like a robust red wine, like a Cabernet or something like that, and the only bourbon I've ever had that I really didn't care for was Heaven Hill. What would you suggest?
I would start off thinking about the mash bill, the 72-1810, and then I would go to finished, and I would focus, is it port wine, is it Cabernet? Try to figure out what type of wine and why. If it's dry, sweet, I could go in the direction of sherry if it's sweet, Cabernet if it's dry, and then I start to whittle away which whiskeys I have without naming any specifically, what I have that fits that flavor profile. So the goal really is to create what the guest wants, not what I think they should want, and I try to maintain some objectivity in approaching it that way. So it's not what I like, it's what I think they will like.
So it's a lot
from what
more
I've said.
complex thought process that goes into that than, just trying to marry, similar mash bills or things to that nature.
Absolutely, and it's not pushing products too, because sometimes people oftentimes will say that they like wheated bourbons, but then when you give them something that's different than the most popular wheated bourbons, I'll leave it at that,
Right.
They don't like them, and what they're really looking for is balance, or they're looking for something that's fruit forward, or you kind of have to do a little more digging. So you have to talk to them a little bit and not just say, "Oh, we'll just give them a wheated bourbon."
Right.
Yeah, I think it's great that you dig into their palate more than anything else, and I think that's a really unique experience that people can look for when trying bourbons, because that's really what it comes down to, right? Is you don't know what you don't know, and so in order for you to really experience what else is out there, you need to have someone who actually cares about what you're drinking and why you're drinking that. And I think you do a great job, and you showcase that very well.
Thank
so
you.
kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you. I have one of the greatest jobs in America.
And
Most of the time.
Besides your boss.
Most of the time.
And to piggyback a little bit more onto that, because you guys serve great food here, right? Like sometimes some bourbons don't necessarily, or some ryes don't necessarily go with some of the foods that you might serve. So how does that affect your opinion when you're trying to, meld in or dial in?
Drink
on somebody's
first,
taste?
eat questions later. Let's move on.
But we've got a pretty there's a great depth in our food menu. So seafood, traditional Southern, pretty much everything you can possibly imagine. We've got those raw oysters that everyone loves. We do oysters Rockefeller. My goodness, we've got shrimp, we've got mussels, we've got burgers, we've got chicken,
Brisket tacos.
brisket, and then when we start talking about what we smoke, the baby back ribs and the different rubs, St. Louis, etc.
If you keep talking about food, we're gonna have to go eat soon.
Well, We've got lots
And on that note, Bourbon Barrel Talk signing off to go eat.
It is funky though, because we often talk about bourbon because we're a bourbon bar, but you also want to look at the beers too. So if somebody comes in and they're like, "What kind of beers do you have on tap?" If they're going to be ordering something spicy, you absolutely don't want to offer an IPA, right? You need to stay in that Pilsner category, because as soon as that IPA hits their tongue, it's going to light them up, and they're not going to taste anything in that beer. So you also have to know the other side of that as well. And then that same contingency holds place when you're looking at a Chardonnay drinker that's looking for shrimp and grits or something of that nature, some of that seafood. You need a lighter feel to it, because if you don't offer that lighter feel, it's going to be super heavy. It's going to basically just ruin that palate, and their flavor is going to be gone.
And I guess with that, we also have to mention that we're about to introduce something new next week. And that is, Brad, I'll let you talk about the breakfast menu.
So we are going to be launching a breakfast program as of Monday, February 14th.
Whoa, you're
Happy Valentine's
breakfast
Day.
Monday.
Yeah, exactly, man.
During the week breakfast. Awesome.
Exactly. So it's going to pop off 7 a.m., close down at 2 p.m., and then throughout that, of course, we're still going to launch a regular Doc Crow's business at 11 for lunch through dinner. But we're really excited about the profiles that our head chef Manny and one of our other chefs, Christian, our sous chef, they came up with some really solid recipes. We've got a derby skillet, we've got a omelet, we've got really good 4.5 ounce biscuits that uphold super great when you're making a sandwich out of them. You can get that as a croissant, you can get that as a bagel. We're going to have donuts in there as well. So as we launch that breakfast program, we've got a few cocktails in there. We've got a really good, solid build on a Bloody Mary, a very approachable mimosa as well, and then we've got kind of a shade on a mimosa that is like a sunrise mimosa, something to that aspect. And then we also have a dessert cocktail for that breakfast menu that's going to be kind of a slider on a mudslide.
That's awesome.
So
Gotcha.
just going to be a super unique feel.
I'm ready for that.
Man, it's
No, I
I'll
love
tell you what,
breakfast. It's
I'll
my
show you
favorite
guys
meal.
pictures in a little bit. The breakfast was phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Pancakes, like chocolate covered, multicolored pancakes, honey butter, maple butter, like they went all out. Man.
If you
It's
keep
great.
talking about food at dinner time, I'm gonna get mad.
I
All
know.
right.
I'm gonna throw out a couple of little dingers just for you guys. So before we sign off here, favorite pour?
Price a contingency?
No,
Eagle Rare 17.
you were 17. Okay.
All day.
I'm fumbling here.
Okay, I 12 year. What? Sorry, I didn't mean to go down there.
Hazmat Stag.
Which year?
Which one?
The one I had was 141 proof. And it
Is
was,
that 2008?
I was,
2016 is 144. I
I
think.
shouldn't say this. I was working at Churchill Downs at the time, and it was extraordinary.
Gotcha. No, all those hazmat stags, I love them.
Brilliant.
We'll mute that part
Really brilliant.
2017 was delicious too.
Yeah.
It really was.
Did you all bring any?
Oh, I don't have any with me. Matter of fact, I'm out of that bottle.
I mean, I have
Flavorful.
car whiskey,
The
but
2019 birthday bourbon hit a lot like the 2017 Stag, oddly enough, as far as like bold profile goes.
Yeah,
It was awesome.
So I had an argument with Josh. Josh is the other guy that does podcast with us. We claim Oakville fanboy, like he literally is all Oak
remember
Forester.
meeting
Like
him.
he's crazy about Oak Forester. And we were drinking through like I think it was 2016 to 2020 on the birthday bourbons, and we had a massive argument about which. And I just kept going. 19 is the one. 19,
That's
19,
it.
19,
That's it.
19. And he's like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, "So I still think I win."
2014, 2019 are definitely the taste forward of all the birthdays.
yeah.
Good deal. All right. You got to buy, if I give you $50, you're going to the liquor store and you're going to buy a bottle. What are you going to buy? One bottle for $50 or less.
I know what I'd buy. I'm embarrassed to say, but I know exactly
I'm
what
embarrassed to say as well.
What do
Go
you
ahead.
got?
I'd probably get Knob Creek.
Knob Creek?
Yeah, $50. Yep, I probably would.
Like the 120 proof, the $49.99 one? Or are you
Yep.
talking about like
Yep.
the,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
standard Knob Creek. Okay.
Yeah,
You're talking, all right.
Brad?
I'm bougie. Most of my bourbons are over $65, $70, so
I love
that's
that.
a tough one. It depends, right? So it depends on if I was going to be sipping all night or if I was going to be drinking. Huge,
All right, you're sipping.
Huge
You're sipping.
scales.
You're
huge
sipping.
scales.
You're sipping.
Okay.
You're going to take it to a Christmas party. $50. That's all you got in your pocket though. $50, you got to run in and out. So you got to be able to get it.
Can't buy diapers, can't pay rent, parking, not going to
Buy a bottle of whiskey.
You're not be able to put gas in the car. Yeah, let's do
Goodness, man. Sipping all night, I hate to say it, but I'd probably just pick up an Old Forester Sig.
There you go.
It's $26.
Super
easy.
I got this.
It's 100 proof. I can sip on it, drink it all night.
I got this.
it. Where are you, Matt? Where are you?
4 bottles of JTS Brown bottled and bond.
Man, it's delicious.
And
I didn't know we could choose multiple bottles.
Really?
No, I just buy 4 of the same bottle.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. $13.99. Deliciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with JTS Brown. Now, see, I would probably buy 1910.
Yeah.
You can't. That's
You
over
can.
$50.
$62.
$53.99.
I found them for $49.99.
Actually, I found it at Walmart the other day. Sorry, edit that part out. But it was mismarked for $25
Yes.
flat.
Oh, yeah.
$24.99.
So I picked
1910
it.
or 1920.
No, the
I would be in
1910
at
works. So I
50
was like,
all day.
yes,
All day.
please. And they only had 2
Yeah.
bottles. And I was like,
Because that was my first pick was 1920 because I love
Mine was
sipping
1910
Woodford
my
Double
first
Oak.
pick.
I mean, there's a lot of
19
different ones I think that are
1910.
out there.
Yeah, but then we start moving over $50.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
54.
mellow
58.
corn for
Yeah.
$9.99.
because there are a number.
Mellow corn.
One of our neighbors, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Well, all right. So, hey, if when people come to Louisville and they want to come to Doc Crow's, tell them where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
127, 129 West Main Street. We are literally across the street from the Yum Center by the 2nd Street Bridge
All
on
right.
historic Whiskey Row.
All right.
And then if you want to make a reservation, just go through the open table profile, and we've got everything set up on there.
Gotcha. If they want to ask you guys questions, you want to throw out an email or anything like that?
Yeah, just Brad, super easy, Brad at docrows.com.
All right. John?
I'm afraid. Louisville Shumake at yahoo.com.
Louisville Shumake
Louisville Shumake, the name of the city and my last name.
at yahoo.com.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good deal. Well, thanks for having us out again.
Real
It was
pleasure.
Great
Absolutely.
conversation. If you want to find Bourbon Barrel Talk, you can find us at bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com with any questions. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter. My favorite is turning into Facebook. You know, I get lazy and kind of do multi-platform through Facebook with the meta world. You get to send everything everywhere. So you can send us questions in that way. If you don't remember, or if you have been drinking too much through this episode, to remember their email addresses, you can send us questions and we'll be glad to get them to Brad and John and try to get those back to you on an episode later on in this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You can find us on iTunes and then also on Spotify, Google, anywhere where you can find your podcast. This is Scott, Matt, Brad, and John signing off. Peace out.